Ilia Topuria and Charles Oliveira, guys, are fighting this Saturday, and you came to the right video. I have the best stylistic breakdowns on YouTube, brother. And you'll know this, handsome guys in the back know this, ugly guys even know this with no hairline. Brother, when it comes to stylistic breakdowns, I really break it down to a T. So I want you guys to understand what you're doing before you actually bet on this fight. I don't want you just betting on this fight, dude, Charles from Vibes or Ilia from Vibes. Ilia's going to knock him out in 2 seconds. Charles is going to submit him in 4 seconds. Settle down. Both fan bases settle down, relax a little bit, and let me walk you through this stylistic breakdown. And let me tell you who's gonna win at the end of it, and I know who's gonna win. Mr. Kenny doesn't miss. I never missed a hairline appointment, never missed a good look appointment. I'm always handsome every day. I don't miss, brother. We're not gonna start today. Let's get into the stylistic breakdown immediately, indubitably. Striking comparison. Let's start off with the striking because I feel like it's gonna be a very important aspect of this fight. Topuria's boxing is superior, and overall, I'm going to say striking is superior. Topuria wins the pressure fight, but Charles will come out hot. And I'm saying this because Charles is going to come out really hot like he does in most of his fights. He's going to try to put the illusion of Topuria that I'm going to be backing you up this whole fight. However, one thing I've nitpicked and noticed from Charles Oliveira, yes, he does come out strong, but that overwhelming pressure does not last more than 2.5 rounds, or more than even a round. The way he comes out in the first 30 seconds to that ranges to I'll say the first 30 seconds. Sometimes it goes to 2 minutes. He's really trying to I don't want to say make you nervous, but he's trying to overwhelm you with teep kicks, low kicks, push kicks, flying knees, 1-2s. With the high guard too, very, very intimidating stance. He does a good job with this too. He stands really tall. Pereira does it too. Some Brazilians do it a lot. Stand tall, and they stand very intimidating, and they kind of unconsciously make you fight on the back foot just because their presence is very overwhelming. I think Charles will is going to look like he's going to be overwhelming Ilia with pressure early in the striking, but as the fight continues, you're going to start to see Ilia plod forward with a high guard as well. And this is going to lead to some clashes in the middle, and Ilia's superior boxing is going to win in most of these exchanges. Charles' defense is lackluster despite the high guard he always has. I noticed even looping hooks, 1-2s down the middle, they always happen to get through Charles' guard. And it usually happens when you sit down your punches. If you're like Michael Chandler, you're going to loop into one punch and run away. It's not really going to bleed through his guard as easily as far as an Islam who kind of slides out the way, finds an angle, gets it. Sometimes Charles' lackluster defense is him putting himself in bad positions like the flying knee, that gets him out of position. That Islam was able to looping punch and drop him off of. Situations like that put Charles in a very dangerous spot, especially with Ilia Topuria, because Ilia Topuria is going to be the most powerful striker and the quickest boxer that Charles Oliveira has ever seen. Charles Oliveira gets tagged with a kind of slow but powerful punches. Justin Gaethje doesn't really throw really quickly. He kind of telegraphs all his punches, throws his all into it, and if he lands, it hurts. But it's not hard to see coming. But Charles still doesn't have the ability to weave it or avoid getting hit because I don't think his defense is as good as some other people think. But I do think Charles' low kicks and his teep kicks are very important, especially early, guys, because if Charles can establish a low kick and back hurt or affect Ilia's leg, it's gonna lead to negate less pressure from Ilia Topuria. Ilia Topuria wants to impose that dominance, and if you let him, he'll walk you down like a real bad man. He's gonna put it on you, beats on you, Dr. Dre, really bad. Max Holloway tried it a little bit, but when Max Holloway would throw the low kicks, he'll get count with a 1-2 and you stop throwing. Volk was doing a really good job circling and moving, but Charles doesn't move as good as Volk, I'd say. I think Volk's movement, his stick and move, little low kicks and move, jabs and moves. Volk was actually doing really well in the first round, that low kick and kind of jab and moving. Ultimately, what got Volk caught was his lack of defensive ability, which I look at Charles, and I think he has a similar lack of defensive ability throughout the fight, not just in the 3rd, 4th, 5th round. In the first round, especially when he's coming out really aggressive, he's not necessarily protecting himself in the most intelligent way. So as far as striking comparison, when you look at this, guys, you got to acknowledge that Ilia Topuria is that guy, and he's a real dangerous guy. And every single time Charles is in the striking position, trying to go point for point, he will not be Ilia Topuria. This is my opinion. Even with the pressure he's going to have in the first couple rounds, he's going to overwhelm him a little bit. It's not going to lead to him winning, though. I just want you guys to know, if he's going to keep it pretty, he will not be Ilia Topuria. Let me sip this drink. It's just not going to be enough for Charles if he wants to stand at bay and kind of go for kick for kick or punch for punch with someone as talented as Ilia Topuria. That being said, I'm separating these two categories, striking from clinch comparison. Charles has the clinch advantage here. Don't get it twisted. Yes, striking is, you could clinch strike. That's a form of striking, but I really want to make a whole slide for clinch because this is Charles' key to victory, in my opinion. He has the clinch advantage because he will use his size to smother Ilia. When Charles initiates a clinch, We know he's going to throw some strikes, but what Charles does a good job doing is staying really heavy. Really heavy in the clinch, whether he has you in the middle or he has you against the fence. When he has against the fence, he presses his whole body up against you, bro. And like, it's very overwhelming. It's hard for someone, especially if you're shorter than him, like Ilia Topuria is going to be 5'7". It's hard for you to almost hold his weight because he's very overwhelming when he's on top of you. And what it does is it drains energy. And in addition to that, what Charles does really good is his body knees when he gets you to the clinch. He'll push you back, put you in a Muay Thai clinch, and he'll throw some mean elbows. Not elbows. Well, yeah, he throws elbows too, but he'll throw some mean knees to your body, and it zaps energy out of you horribly. Ilia Topuria has not been in a clinch fight with a lot of people. This is a whole different category for Ilia Topuria to look at and view before a fight. So he's not going to be as ready as some of you guys might think. And this is Charles Oliveira's key to victory. If Charles really wants to beat Ilia, don't keep it pretty with striking, trying to go tit for tat with your high guard. You know, trying to land some hooks. You let him land some hooks. He'll beat you in the tit for tat. But what I don't think Ilia can beat him in is the let's make it ugly, let's make it rough and tough. Let's make it rough and tough, as Charles Oliveira would want to do. Go in there and put some Brazilian heaviness and pressure and size on him. You know, he's going to need to mix it up in the clinch strikes with his elbows, his knees. And if he's doing that effectively, he will drain Ilia Topuria's energy. We have seen Ilia Topuria really tired against like Zala, you know, in other fights as well, like where he's kind of like going on the back foot. That was short notice, of course, but we have seen Ilia look a little bit lackluster when he gets energy drained. But if you let Ilia just control you and back you up, it's not going to be good. But if Charles is using his pressure not to jump into stupid flying knees that are nowhere near the mark, but he's using to actually clinch strike and drain stuff with some body knees, he will overwhelm and he will fatigue Ilia Topuria, which makes it very dangerous. Because if Charles has you fatigued, then some scrambles could happen from some grappling exchanges. He can get you in the ground, then submissions open up, then his power, because Charles does have power, don't get it twisted, it can rock and it can hurt Ilia. If Charles Oliveira is smart, he's going in this fight with a heavy clinch game plan, and he could definitely shock the world and do some bad things to Ilia Topuria. That being said, let's look at the grappling, because we looked at striking, Ilia advantage. Look at the clinch, Charles advantage. Who has the grappling advantage? Charles Oliveira does as well. This is the thing about Charles, guys. He's likely to shoot on Ilia. One thing people don't do good with Ilia is giving him other options. Max Holloway wasn't really giving him the takedown option. Volk didn't really give it to him like he should have. They don't give Ilia a takedown threat. Now, when you do this to Ilia, what Ilia does, he takes his time to strategically find patterns that you have on the feet. So when I'm saying this, I mean, Ilia knows your habits, because if you're standing for Ilia for 25 minutes, it takes him about 7-8 minutes to read the patterns you do, then capitalize on a blitz or a flurry that will lead to the last shot low-key landing on you and putting you to sleep. But when you're disrupting that rhythm of him trying to find your rhythm and take him down, he's going to have to get up and reset and try to find that rhythm all over again. And doing that, it helps you beat Ilia. I don't think Charles is going to score every takedown. I think it's going to give Topuria a different look, because it's going to force Topuria to make changes. But I think Topuria is actually really dense. He looks small, kind of like the Volk build. He looks pretty dense. He looks strong, you know, for 155. So it's not going to be roses and bubbles for Charles to get him down. That being said, just the takedown threat in itself, or the option, or like making Topuria defend it, it gives him different looks, to a point where if Charles is faking a takedown now, Ilia's going to be like, oh, he's going to try to feint, or he's going to try to sprawl, and he's going to get his boxing rhythm really off. Someone like Islam or Mavzar could do this way better, but I'm going to have to bring it up in a Charles fight. I'm not saying Charles is as good as wrestler as them, but Charles, he was able to take down a kind of shitty Chandler, and I feel like that's important here, guys. I feel like it's important for someone like Charles to show him different looks, strike with him, clinch with him, go for takedowns. If you overwhelm the mind of someone who's a primary boxer, they start to look lost in there, especially when you have the size advantage over him and you have some good power in your hands with good grappling. Charles has the tools to beat him, and if he could use his grappling in his clinch to his advantage, it could be very problematic for Ilia Topuria. In addition to this, Topuria is in danger on the ground. Doesn't matter how it works. If Charles can actually score a takedown, Charles' ground and pound is very underrated, chat. When Charles gets you, he has really heavy hips. I like praising people for heavy hips. Charles is one of those guys. Ilia was taken down and controlled by Bryce Mitchell for the last minute of the fight. He kind of accepted full guard and kind of like lasted for like the minute and a couple seconds with Bryce Mitchell. But what Ilia is really good at is that he'll get you in full guard. He'll try to move to half guard, use his heavy hips, and try to land some ground and pound. And the ground and pound can create some submission opportunities. You might turn your back, give up your neck. And doing that, like when you're on the bottom of Charles, good luck. Arman Tsarukyan was under Charles at a point, and it was really scary to look at. Arman Tsarukyan is also like the same height as an Ilia, but he's more physically imposing and stronger, so he's able to scramble out of that. And I think he's more flexible as well. I don't know why Armin's really flexible. I don't know, but he was able to get and scramble out of these uncomfortable positions when Charles had some controlling positions on top. Whereas I look at Ilia, seeing how complacent he was against a Bryce Mitchell, who's just nowhere near the size, strength, or grappling ability of a Charles Oliveira. It's going to be a lot more problematic if Charles gets him on the ground. It could really be a bad recipe for disaster for Ilia Topuria. Whether he gets him on the ground or gets his back while standing, all this is these are things that you guys need to acknowledge. People don't understand that Charles Oliveira is not out of this fight probably the way you think he is. I feel like people think, dude, Charles is not going to win. Like, Charles definitely has a chance to win. We looked at striking, we looked at clinch, we looked at grappling. We got to also note there's some notable things we need to address. Starting with this, Topuria will jump on Charles if he gets him hurt, and I say this is an situation. The reason I say it's is because Topuria isn't Islam, guys. Topuria isn't that great of a grappler on the ground. We've heard good news about Topuria. Yes, he submitted Bryce Mitchell, who's been submitted by now Gene Silva and stuff. Like, Bryce Mitchell's BJJ is not bad, but it's been exploited a couple times. Like, I'm saying this to say that Topuria jumping on Charles is not going to be as, roses and bubbles as an Islam Makhachev jumping on Charles Oliveira, because Islam Makhachev has a squeeze. He's strong physically, and he gets to positions really well, and he moves through positions really well. He slips through guards really well. He can go from half guard to full mount really well. I've never really seen that from Ilia, so I can't really go off anything to justify he'll be just as dominant there as Islam Makhachev. I also said this. Topuria will likely use his pressure to fatigue Charles. I think as the fight goes, because people are saying first round knockout. I know Ilia's saying it too. I don't necessarily know if that's going to happen, but I do know that if the fight goes past the first round, that I can see Topuria's pressure getting to Charles to the point where Charles is going to be circling on the back foot, and that would be a recipe for disaster, because if Charles is looking like that and fatiguing, and Charles did fatigue against Armin Sarukian, keep in mind, this could be a dangerous thing for Charles Oliveira, whose defensive ability is just not up there. So if he's using his pressure, I think it will fatigue Charles by the second or third round. Yes, that early, to a point where we're going to see a finish there by Ilia Topuria. That's how good he is. I also want to note that Topuria will be the best and most powerful boxer and UFC fighter period that Charles Oliveira ever went against. Dude, kidding. Justin Poirier, Justin Gaethje, they're not as precise, they're not as quick, and they don't hit as hard. You don't see Justin Gaethje touch people's chin and then they disappear. You don't see Justin Poirier touch people's chin, they disappear. They're volume punches. Accumulation from them, they overwhelm you. Ilia, one shot, like the Volk shot, will put you to sleep. It's like the Max Holloway shot, uncrackable chin, that will drop you. We've seen Max Holloway at 155 against a big, strong guy like Dustin. Dustin really couldn't get him out of there because that chin was too good. Then we see what Ilia did to him. Ilia Topuria is like, he's going to be tough. I think vice versa as well. I think Charles Oliveira at 155 hits like a truck, and people don't really want to acknowledge that. But it's not going to be sweet it ain't nothing sweet if Charles is catching someone like Ilia Topuria on the end of his punches. Also said this, Charles will be bigger than any opponent Ilia's ever went against, especially in the clinch. Like I said, Ilia won't be used to this clinch, so someone as big and strong as Charles might surprise him. It might not be what he wants exactly. I feel like once he's feeling that pressure, he could mentally break. I hope Ilia is strong mentally, but it's weird when you're in a different weight class and you're starting to feel different strength and different people on you and their force and how much weight they're carrying. It could overwhelm you and like make you kind of standoffish, and it kind of makes you back down from that situation. But last but not least, and a very important notable thing, Charles' last win is overrated against Michael Chandler. Before that, like he's losing to Armin Sarukian, a good fighter. Of course, got destroyed by Islam. His last win against Chandler, after seeing what Paddy did to Chandler, it makes me realize that Charles, who's known for being a finisher, kind of lacked that ability against someone with zero gas tank. He even had Chandler's back, wasn't able to threaten stuff. So it's like Charles' best weapon being his BJJ and his finishing ability. It's concerning because we haven't really seen you do that in a little bit. Last finish was Dariush, who's been a little bit chinny lately. But that being said, I haven't seen your BJJ go to work in a little bit. Like, yes, like 3-4 years ago, you were getting some. But I'm saying as of lately, especially someone like Michael Chandler, who fatigued, who you had control of him for like 99% of the fight, you couldn't finish him, is concerning. While Topuria's resume is really legit. Knocking out Max Holloway is legit. Knocking out Volkanovski is legit. He's going 5 rounds of Josh Emmett, a powerful puncher, and stepping in the fray with him is legit. Submitting Bryce Mitchell, a BJJ wizard, I'm glazing, is legit. Topuria is really good right now. Charles is not in his prime. And I know people, dude, he's in his prime. He beat Michael Chandler. That's impossible to do. No, he's not in his prime. And it's actually significant because I think we're not going to see the Charles that we would. Prime Charles, do I think could beat Ilia? Absolutely. Is this prime Charles? No. How do I think this fight goes? I think Topuria knocks him out round 2 and 3. Charles will slow down after his very fast start. He'll open up really quick in the first minute or two. He'll try to pressure Ilia. He might even have some moments where it looks like he's touching up Ilia. But overall, Topuria's pressure boxing will get to him, and you'll knock him out. I don't see Charles making it out of here, and I'm really confident that Topuria's going to put this guy to sleep. I know you're probably looking at a stylistic breakdown, but Kenny, what about the clinch and the grappling? Yes. Everything I'm kind of giving Charles credit for is what he does well, but I'm looking at his fights that I've seen recently, and most of those fights were the Justin fight. That's a prime Charles. Lately against Armin, yes, does he have some good grappling situations? Yes. Is he lacking finishing ability? Is he having people in compromising position but still not finding finishes like he did against Armin and Chandler? Yes. His best weapon being his BJJ. People are saying Ilia might get submitted. You guys got to understand that BJJ has been tested his last two fights, and he's had them in good positions, but he's just not been able to finish. Ilia Topuria has not shown that he's able to get finished in these grappling exchanges and does have a good background in grappling from what we know. I cannot look at this fight and say Charles Oliveira wins. I'm very confident. This is a Mr. Kenny confidence that Topuria will knock him out in the second and third round, and you're going to come back to this stylistic breakdown. You're going to be like, Kenny was literally on point with everything he said. Charles had some success in the clinch. Ilia, the pressure boxing just got to him though, and eventually when he touched him, he went to sleep. Charles Oliveira will get knocked out or TKO'd by Ilia Topuria. Quote me on this, bookmark this, save this, like this, come back to this. I'm posting it on Tuesday. You guys have to come back to it after Saturday. Ilia Topuria will defeat Charles Oliveira. You heard it here first from Mr. Kenny. So do what you got to do now. Put your betting slips in. But if you're putting Charles by submission or Charles by knockout, brother, no dale. Trust Mr. Kenny. Ilia Topuria by knockout or Ilia Topuria by KO points. If for some reason Charles is really durable and has good gas tank, but I just doubt that happens. Hope you guys enjoyed though the stylistic breakdown. I really went in on this one. So if you guys really trust my word, I did research on this. Trust me, brother. I'm the best. I'm the best YouTuber at this, brother. I'll get you guys money and we'll make some money. Let's make money on Ilia Topuria by the finish, brother. That's it for me. God bless. 2, 3, 4.